it usually takes a life or death illness or a life or death situation to force people to change, but it doesn't need to be that way. Why not change for the better now? Why not choose to change for the better and chase those scary dreams and chase those scary moments? Because that's when you truly feel alive. And knowing that we're all going to die at some point in our lives should be one of the biggest motivators to truly live.
Welcome back to the show, Disruptors. I'm your host, Hale, and this is Point of Impact. I want you to think back to your early teenage years, 13, 14, 15, middle school, and what kind of challenges you were going through at that time. I mean, your body's changing, your terrible haircuts, middle school drama, the awful smelling drugstore cologne. I mean, the worst tragedy in my life at that time was my wardrobe. I certainly wasn't prepared for any of life's real challenges or any kind of actual trauma. But for Sean Swarner, who probably wasn't prepared either, nobody could be. He was facing not just one, but two completely unrelated, life-threatening cancers, back to back, before he was even old enough to vote. Listen to this story that you're about to hear, because it's incredible. Just his story of survival, but then also what he does afterwards. Climbing the 7 summits, Everest, skiing to both poles, competing in the Ironman championship, and so much more. Now he's inspiring and empowering others to raise the bar themselves and face the challenges and become more resilient. That, right now. Here's my guest in our conversation with Sean Swarner. Sean, welcome to Point of Impact.
I appreciate it, Aaron. How's it going, man?
It's going well. I mean, except for the fact that we just had a tornado go right past. We had tornado warnings and the internet just came back on. So I think it's lucky that we're talking at this place and time. But you are no stranger to luck. You are. It's an anomaly. It doesn't even do it justice. I think you said what happened to you early in your childhood is the equivalent statistically of, what was it? Hitting the lottery 4 times with the same numbers.
Absolutely. So I was really bored one day and started crunching some numbers. And because of the 2 cancers I've had, no one's ever had them before. And the chances of me surviving essentially is like you said, when it's the same as winning the lottery 4 times in a row with the same numbers. I mean, it's like you said, it's an anomaly. I think I'm a living, breathing, walking miracle.
Well, let's talk through it a little bit. Tell me a little bit about when this happened, where you grew up, and a little bit about you're having cancer when you were a kid.
Well, I'm assuming you don't want to go back to, my mom and dad got together, then 9 months later, bum. I probably don't want to go back that far. So we'll just go back to when I was 13. That's when I was diagnosed with my first cancer. And it was interesting, excuse me, because I didn't show any symptoms. No night sweats, no swollen glands, nothing. I was an athlete. I was a swimmer. I played football, cross country, track, pole vault. I mean, you name it. I was trying to get into trouble, and I was just going in for a layup during lunch in the 8th grade. I was 13, and I came down. My knee cracked, and it's kind of like the sound of like a turkey leg during Thanksgiving. The tendons and the ligaments kind of ripping off the bone. That's what my knee sounded like. And that knee injury, looking back at it, literally changed my life. And they diagnosed me with advanced stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma, which, I mean, they told my parents, your firstborn son has 3 months to live. So it was horrible at the time, but I see it personally as a blessing because my friends at that time were, when most people are getting, when they're in the eighth grade, freshman year in high school, their biggest concerns are where they're going to sit at lunch, being popular with the in crowd, wearing the nicest clothes and nicest hairstyles. I was literally on the shower floor on my hands and knees, sobbing as the chemotherapy was destroying my hair follicles. My hair was falling out. I was 70 pounds overweight from the steroids, fighting for my life. So at a young age, I had a different perspective than most people.
And yeah, but I've got a 13-year-old right now, and every single day I have to kind of chuckle at some of the stuff. He'll come out of the bathroom reeking of cologne, or just it's almost like he's got an allergy to hair cutting. So I don't know what it is, but yeah, I just laugh because I remember those days. And one thing I do remember is that we were crazy. The hormones and all of that, we weren't thinking straight when we were the silly things we worried about. But then to have something like this, what went through your mind at that time? I know a 13-year-old isn't equipped emotionally for such heavy things. So, what was that like?
It's a great question. And looking at the time, I don't think I really fully understood what was going on just because I was so young. And I honestly think, looking back at it now, it was probably worse on my parents than it was on me. Anyone who has kids, like you said, you have a young one now is reeking of cologne, and it would probably be more difficult on you than it would be on your child. So I think that it was probably harder on my parents because normally when people are diagnosed with cancer, even now, nothing has changed in the past, like say 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. Technology has changed quite a bit, as we both know, but the psychological aspect of it hasn't, and how they deliver the news and information hasn't. So normally they would come up and say, Sean, you have cancer. This is what the prognosis is. This is what we're going to do. This is the treatment. This is what's, you've tuned out. As soon as you hear that C word, you're done. You're out. But my parents didn't necessarily tell me it was cancer. They told me, hey, Sean, you have an illness. You're sick. We're going to do everything we possibly can to get you better. It's curable. And oh, by the way, it's cancer. So I heard all that positive, good stuff before the bad, negative information. So I think that really helped. Now, saying that I was constantly positive would be a lie. I was terrified because oftentimes when people are going through chemotherapy, it's not the cancer that kills them, but it could be a common cold because your immune system's so damaged and so low. So they were terrified of that. But I think it really helped me develop a different perspective. My friends were worried about, you remember like the Reebok pump back then. They were at home 27, 28, 29, pumping up their shoes, getting that perfect fit. I was literally 70 pounds overweight, fighting for my life, but it turned out to be a blessing. And I think we all have the choice to see how we want to react to what happens to us.
We had I had Jennifer Braxterman, another cancer survivor, on the show not long ago, and she was given an 8% chance of living. And this is in the Canadian healthcare system, but she, the way it was delivered to her was, you better get your affairs in order, and it's where do you want to do hospice instead of the positivity side. So was that is that your parents mostly? Was that the doctors? Did you have a solid circle of friends? Also, where did you grow up? I think I heard something about you being a fellow Buckeye.
Yeah, unfortunately, in that breath, I want to say go blue because Michigan, like, Bo Schembechler was my second cousin. However, Woody Hayes was a family friend. So on my dad's side, it was Michigan, and on my mom's side, they were friends with Woody Hayes. So in late November, we were literally a house divided, and it was my mom, my dad, my brother, and myself growing up in Willard, Ohio, and mom and dad both had to convince one of the boys, to come to their side during the game. It was usually going for my brother and I would usually help support my dad. Just I think at that time when we were growing up, we just loved the colors better. We didn't like white and red that much. We liked the blue and yellow. So I was an Ohio boy through and through, and my backyard was a bean field or a cornfield, depending on the season.
And the support, whether it was Wolverine or Buckeye, that seems to have had a very positive effect on you. Was it mostly mental? Was it mindset that helped get you through this? You were also very athletic. I mean, was it the physical fitness part aspect of it too?
Absolutely. I also think, well, I was a competitive swimmer. I want to say starting at 6 years old. I started with the YMCA. They have 8 and unders, then 9, 10, then 11, 12, then 13, 14, then 15 to 18 years old. And I think I started being a competitive swimmer when I was 5 or 6 years old. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that my parents always taught me was I didn't have to be the best, but I had to always be my best. And when I swam, say the 25-meter breaststroke, I'd touch the wall, and my parents would, my mom or my dad would pull me out of the water, and they would ask me 2 questions, and it was both. Did you have fun, and did you do your best? Not, hey, why didn't you beat Aaron? Why didn't you beat Steven? Why didn't you beat Chris? None of that. It was always, did you do your best? And then the next weekend at the swim meet, doing the 25-meter breaststroke, I would try to beat my time from the weekend before. Mm-hmm. So I always tried to just level up and increase my time. And I think that was instilled in me at such a young age, where I try not to compare myself. Even now, I try not to compare myself to others. And I think that mindset came from my parents in the athletic realm. But going through the treatments, I also think that my parents were trying to protect me. So they never wanted me to see them crying. They never wanted me to see them just defeated and deflated. They wanted to project this confident, strong morale and character throughout the family, day in, day out. Because if they didn't, and if they lost hope, then I'm sure their son would lose hope. And speaking of, you mentioned Jennifer, and I'm sure we'll get there too, but the second time around with my cancer, they told my parents that I had 14 days to live. I was read my last rites, and the hospital wanted me to write out a living will at 17 years old. And I have my younger brother, and looked at my mom, and like, well, isn't Seth going to get my hand-me-downs anyhow? Like, what does a hospital want?
Well, tell me about that. We started off with your first cancer at 13, and then you were going through. It was stage 4, and you went through the chemotherapy, and obviously beat it. But how long was that process? And then, I mean, you thought you were through the thick of it, and then how soon thereafter were you diagnosed with your second cancer?
The first cancer, I was going through treatment about a year in and out of the hospital, getting treatments. I lost my hair numerous times, and her dad came from Scotland, so my dad kept joking around saying, your hair's going to grow back in red and kinky. And I'm like, come on, man, don't scare me like that. So
my mom is the same way.
So it didn't grow back in red and kinky. It grew back in, super fine and thick and then all over the place. But then I was in remission for a year. They found the second cancer because of the first cancer. So the first cancer they found because of the knee injury. The second cancer was found because of the first cancer. I was going in for a checkup when in one day they found a tumor on an x-ray, roughly the size of a golf ball, on my right lung, between my lung and my ribs. They did a needle biopsy where they aspirated part of the tumor. Then they went in, they removed a lymph node. They put in a Hickman catheter, which is like a permanent IV in my chest. Then they cracked open my ribs, removed the tumor, put a drainage tube in, and started chemotherapy in less than one day. Because this time around, I was diagnosed with a type of cancer that affects 3 out of a million people with a prognosis of 6%. And most people who have ever had this, I'm from my knowledge and the research I've done, I'm the longest living survivor of Askins sarcoma. And no one's ever had Askins and Hodgkin's lymphoma before. And again, this was in advanced fourth stage. And like I said earlier, they gave me 14 days to live. I was read my last rites, and that was it. They wanted to put me in hospice too.
Okay, I mean, there was not a like recurrence of the first. It wasn't
Totally
related in
unrelated.
any way from the first cancer.
Totally unrelated.
That's incredible. And when they discovered it, because you were going in for your checkup, I can't believe the process was that swift. Nothing in the medical system is that fast, except billing. But they found it. They recognized it as a malignant cancer, and they went right to work on you.
Absolutely.
But from what I understand, you today only have one lung.
I have one functioning lung because the treatments for the second cancer, I was doing chemotherapy for 3 months, then 1 month of intense radiation, and then 10 more months of chemotherapy. And every time I was in the hospital, let's say my cycle was inpatient Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I'd be released from the hospital to get my blood count higher. You can't go in for another douse of the chemical cocktail without increasing your blood count. So then I went back in Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That would be one cycle. And every time I was inpatient in the hospital, because the treatments were so harsh and because no one had ever had Hodgkin's previously to having Askins, so these two cancers together, the doctors had no idea what they were doing. I was a walking chemical cocktail, basically. I was they were just trying what they thought was best. So because the treatments were so harsh, they put me in medically induced coma every time I was in the hospital for the treatments. And I was essentially, for those 3 months and then the 10 months after the radiation, I was in a medically induced coma for a year. But to answer your question, that 1 month of radiation, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I drove from Willard, Ohio to Columbus, Ohio, where my treatments were at Riverside Hospital, 90 miles each way, just for a 15-minute radiation treatment. And because of that, there's so much scar tissue in my right lung. I have both, but there's so much scar tissue, there's really no oxygen transfer. So I have one fully functioning lung.
That's an amazing story that you, of course, like we said, that's incredibly horrible odds, but you survived, obviously. And what I want to know, what was going through your mind at the time of that second diagnosis and after? Because I mean, it seems like a whirlwind. It seemed like it happened very quickly. I remember, I went blind by an IED blast and had to come to grips with that. Then I went deaf 4 years later, and I remember the feeling like lightning striking twice. Like when have I paid my fair share? Why me again? Type of thing. Did those thoughts come through your mind?
Absolutely. I remember the first time When I got cancer the second time, I think the first thought I had literally was, what the hell did I do to deserve this? Like what I changed. I'm eating healthy. I'm still exercising. And I'm like, God, like, do you hate me right now? Like, what's going on? Why me? Why me? Why me? Anyone who goes through something traumatic like that, like yourself, asking yourself, why me? Why me? Eventually I came to the grips of understanding that doesn't change the fact that I had cancer. There's nothing I could do about that. I can't change the fact that I was diagnosed again. But and I couldn't choose that I was diagnosed again, but I could choose my perspective and I could choose how I reacted to it. And I think that was more empowering than anything else, knowing that I had the choice in how I wanted to react to what was happening to me.
You're absolutely right. I can feel the same emotions coming back right now. And I'm remembering that I was saying that why me, and it was literally like instantly going through all those stages of grief and loss where you're uh, you're saying this couldn't be possibly true, or like bargaining where you're thinking, you know, well, I didn't make all the best decisions in my life, but like you said, I didn't deserve this. What did I do? Why am I being punished again? Right? But when I look back, and I think the turning point was, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for turning it around, but one of them was that it got me nowhere. It was that endless spiral circle of just you know questions that have no answer, right? So you got to say, what now? What were some of the things that got you out of your that the from asking the wrong questions to asking the right questions?
I appreciate that. And as you were talking, I was thinking of, excuse me, my first cancer, and I remember being in the shower on my hands and knees. My hair all fell out in however long it takes for the hot water tank to start being cold, to what, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, depending on how big it is. And it started going cold, and I remember being on my hands and knees, my hair clogging the drain, and the water level rising up in the shower, and I was just sobbing. At 13 years old, and I started thinking that I had two choices: I could fight for my life or give up and die. Obviously, the latter wasn't an option, but I started thinking about why I wanted to continue fighting and why I wanted to push forward, and I projected into the future. And I was sitting there on my hands and knees thinking, okay, well, let's say I did give up and die. Let's say I curled up into the fetal position and into a corner and gave up. What would my family's lives look like 3 months from now? If you look at, if you've ever had someone care for you or care about you, then you have a reason to fight. And I couldn't imagine how my parents' lives would be if they lost their firstborn son, and how much trauma that would cause them. And I think that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to continue forward. I didn't want that to happen to them. And then I also decided I wasn't focused on not dying. I was focused on living. And because your energy and attention pretty much goes to wherever your focus is.
So where did your attention go from there?
My attention went to, hey, I'm going to beat this damn thing. And regardless of what happens, I'm going to enjoy every moment that I've been given.
And how old are you? You're 16, 17 when I mean, you can't even buy a gun. Can't buy you can't. Did you have your license by then? I mean, you can't buy cigarettes or enlist in the military yet, and you're diagnosed with your second cancer.
Well, it's funny. I'm the only person in the history of Ohio State to have their driver's license taken with a hat on, because I was bald. I got my driver's license. I passed the test, everything. And the second time around, I didn't want to wear a wig. The first time around, I wore a wig when I was younger. The second time, I just wore a hat. And my dad was a dentist in the local town, right? The only dentist there. And we were a farming community, so there was a lot of trade. You know, we had fresh vegetables year round, and the town had nice teeth. You know, it worked out well. So he knew the lady at the DMV, and she knew what was happening to me. So I was allowed to get my driver's license. I have it somewhere. I'll have to check it out. But I got my driver's license taken with my hat on.
No, I was just reminded. I think they let me. I didn't have prosthetics yet, and my driver's license. Of course, they're not going to let me drive. But I needed a Florida state ID. So they let me leave my sunglasses on. I was thinking back to, speaking of Ohio, I went to Bowling Green, and I think my student ID, I had a hat on. It was a Colgate lacrosse hat. Bowling Green, student ID. Anyways, that's it's like, I mean, you must have had to do some serious growing up way before your time. Where did you take this? Like, what did you do with your experience, and what were the major driving factors for, not just beating the cancer, but you know, becoming the person you're living the life you want to live?
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I went to college, I turned into Belushi from Animal House. I relived my high school years that, in my mind, were taken from me. I was the guy who was swinging from the rafters. My buddies were in the band; they were tossing me beers. I was living it up. I was having a great time. I started off molecular biology, and it didn't take too long to realize that if you don't open a book, you're not going to pass immunology and organic chemistry. So that was kind of tough. But then I switched to psychology because I was taking an intro to psych class, and I was fascinated with the mind, and I used the mind body connection, and I utilized vivid visualization when I was going through my treatments, and I think that really helped me move forward. And I wanted to become a psycho-oncologist. I wanted to help people touched by cancer and their families, because as we know, cancer is not an individual disease. It's not an individual journey. And I wanted to really make a difference in the lives of people touched by cancer. And that's when I decided, okay, well, I'm going to take the GRE. I'm going to get accepted to university, work on my master's, my doctorate, and help people from a mindset point of view. And that's also a year and a half into it. I think I have about 2 years left to get my doctorate. I'm never going to go back because I dropped out and started climbing mountains instead.
Well, wait a second. Where did the mountains? Where did the mountains come in a way? And by the way, the parallels, the corollaries here are hilarious, because I went to Bowling Green, like I just mentioned, and I went expecting. I tell people I went expecting Animal House, and I found it. Only I was like the walking Animal House, and everybody around me was looking at me like, when are you going to get your act together? 3 freshman semesters later, and it was like going to Dean Wormer's office, 0.0,
Right.
or no grades. Anyways, my solution was U.S. Navy service. Earn back that tuition that I'd pissed away, literally. Anyways, you had some kind of epiphany. I don't want to be here. I want to be up in the mountains. Where did that come from?
Great question. I wasn't sure we were going to get to that, and I wasn't sure I was even going to talk about it, because it's almost an embarrassing situation. But in grad school, I was bartending. It goes back to alcohol again, I guess. I was bartending at the largest club in Jacksonville, Florida, because I got accepted to University of North Florida, where I was working on my degrees. And I remember one night I was working, and let's just say a woman of loose morals came up to the bar, and she's like, "Hey, can I have sex on the beach and your phone number?" And in my mind, I'm thinking, "Yeah." But outside, I'm trying to play it cool, and it's like, "Here you go, no problem." Gave her the drink, and this went on for the entire night. And then when we were closing, she comes and she flops down on the bar stool, and she looks at me and says, my friends left me. Can you take me home? And again, on the inside, I'm thinking, yeah, but on the outside, playing it cool. No problem. Yeah, no problem at all. So we get out of the club, and I open up the door to my super sexy Honda Civic, and get her into there. We're going up and over the intercoastal, over the bridge, and in the passenger side, I hear, ooh, ooh. She's getting ready to throw up, and I pull over super fast. She opens the door and gets whatever devil was inside of her out, and I continue to drive to her apartment, and she passes out. So we get to her apartment complex. I walk around and open up the door and carry her up 3 flights of steps, and I'm going up to, I don't know what the number was, let's say 3D. And I have this woman in my arms, passed out, and I'm with one leg, I'm kicking at the door, hoping somebody's going to answer. And I'm hoping it's not some dude who's like 6'6", 300 pounds of muscle, who's going to thump me. So I'm kicking on this door, and a short woman opens the door. And I look at her, I was like, "Does she belong to you?" and she looks at me, she goes, "Again?" So I take her inside. I drop her off on a Papasan, one of those Papasan chairs. I don't know if you remember those. It's like a super unstable chair that you should never put somebody who's drunk anyhow. So I put her there, and as I'm leaving on the coffee table, I saw lines of Coke. I saw however many pills, heroin needles, burnt spoons, you name it. And on my drive back home, that's when I started thinking about the choices that I made in my life. And I started thinking about the morals and ethics and the character that my parents instilled in me as a young man from the Midwest. I'm like, I fell so far from who I was in high school, in college, and everyone that my parents were proud of. And if I continued down that path, I knew my life wasn't going to be where I wanted it to go, because I was on the treadmill. I wasn't making conscious decisions based on my personal core values. And that's when I decided to drop out of school, to stop working at the club and focus on something different. And I realized that it had been my subconscious helping me deal with the trauma from the cancer. And I think that when I finally brought that to the surface, that's when I could do the healing. And I realized, okay, well, I've been given this gift of a body that can do anything that my mind thinks it can. And I wanted to literally utilize and use the largest and highest platform in the world to give hope to people who might need it.
So she wasn't a keeper.
She's not the woman I would take home to visit mom and dad.
All right. So this largest platform in the world. Go on.
Well, I did a lot of research, and I kept thinking higher and higher and bigger. And I literally wanted to be the highest, or be the first cancer survivor in the world to climb Mount Everest. I figured if someone can climb Mount Everest after surviving 2 terminal cancers and with 1 functioning lung, that might give some people some hope. It might make some people feel a little lazy about their lives, like they haven't accomplished much, and they think that they have some minute goals. But my main goal was to empower other people to think that there's more out there, and that they're always capable of more than they think.
It's another. I love this. I love this conversation, just where it's going, because that's where I got started, was in the mountains. After losing my eyesight, I started seeking out other blind people that were just. I was trying to figure out how to live a life blind, and just doing internet searches for blind plus outside, blind plus fitness, blind plus whatever. How do people live? And I kept finding these a few names that kept coming up, and one of them, Eric Weinmeier, is the first blind person to climb Everest. So I looked that guy up and I went mountain climbing with him. I just came back last week from went outside Crested Butte, did about 12.5K peaks. It was brutal because it was the first time I've been out in the mountains for almost 10 years since losing my hearing and my balance, which it's a tough combination, but it was such a rewarding experience. And you're right. I was, even after going through it a second time, I'm reminded that we are capable of so much more than we think we are. So tell me, what are you doing now to help empower others, to help people break through those mental limitations?
Well, now after this call, I'm going to send Eric a text and catch up with him. He's a friend of mine. Lives in Golden, Colorado. I live in Castle Rock, Colorado. I didn't know you met Eric. He's a great guy. So I'll have to reach out to him because he does that event. Was it called What's Your Everest? I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, been there a couple times.
Nice. And Crested Butte is it's an amazing place. And getting outside, nature is very healing. It's very recharging. Nature is nurturing. It's amazing how you feel when you get out there and you get away from technology and you kind of unplug. That's what the human mind and body needs more often than not. Most people are stuck on their phones. And all of a sudden, let's say you're on Instagram, you're scrolling through and you look at your watch and an hour and a half has passed. What have you accomplished? Nothing. Go out, get outside, go for a walk. Get grounded in who you are with your values and who you want to be. And what I'm doing now, helping other people, is I take a group up Kilimanjaro, which is the highest mountain in Africa. I take a group up Kilimanjaro every year as a fundraiser for a cancer charity. This year it was for the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition, and it was my 25th trip up the highest mountain in Africa. And when we have the average success rate on the mountain is 48%. My groups are at 99% success rate, and because we do things differently. I was adopted into the local Chugga tribe, and they treat me like a brother now, and they treat everyone who's with me like family. And it's tremendous. And we also use it as an immersive coaching experience on the mountain. We call it the ultimate life climb. And we help people understand that if you raise your standards, you're going to have a higher purpose in life. So I do a lot of keynote speaking. I have an online 3-week mindset challenge that helps people utilize their own personal core values to get more from life, more from themselves, more from everything. And I just want people to, yes, be inspired. We talked about it before we started recording, be inspired, but external motivation and it just doesn't last. So you have to learn how to empower other people. And the only way to do that is not through telling them what to do, but encouraging them to do it on their own. So going back to the Kilimanjaro analogy, I lead from behind and I encourage people to go out and explore on their own.
Tell me a little bit more about this external motivations versus internal. What is it that's the fleeting part about the external motivations?
Well, a great example. When I got to the top of Mount Everest, don't get me wrong, it was beautiful. Knowing that I was higher than anything else in the world, and accomplished what people thought was physiologically impossible. Climbing Everest with one lung, you can't do that. It's like, well, that's probably how you feel about your abilities, not how I feel about my abilities. And I've always thought that what I say is about me, what you hear is about you. And people need to realize that they need to stop projecting themselves on others. And when I got to the top, most people think, well, that's fantastic, that's it. But you have to realize when you get to the summit of any mountain, you're only halfway. You have to get back down. So it didn't take me long to realize once you reach the top of any mountain, there are going to be other peaks to climb, other mountains to climb. I've done the World Championship Ironman triathlon in Hawaii. Once you cross, and numerous marathons. Once you cross the finish line, there are going to be other races to run. Once you reach your goal, you're going to start increasing and increasing it and pushing the limits and pushing the envelope, pushing the limits. There's always going to be something else to do. But if you start to learn and understand what that means to you and why you're doing it, and again, it goes back to your personal core values, you enjoy the journey, you enjoy the trip, you enjoy the process. Yes, you want to reach the goal, but let's say you want to buy a Ferrari. Great. You know what? The Ferrari with time is going to rust out. Then what? You're going to want another one? Great. Well, what's the purpose of getting a Ferrari? Does it mean that you have security for your family because you have the money to afford a Ferrari? If that's the case, then appreciate that, not the thing. So I think once you can help people appreciate and understand the meaning behind the summit, the purpose behind the peak, then you can really start empowering people to go after it for the right reasons.
Yeah, that was it's those core values. And I remember the turning point in my early life after leaving college, very very embarrassed and ashamed of what I'd not accomplished there, and joined the military as a consolation, right? A plan B. And I realized exactly when it turned around is when I remembered that, there's more value in doing it for others, right? And when I realized that I had gotten the personal skills, those, work ethic and, the joy or fulfillment in a hard day's work, but then got to the point where I remember, taking value in being part of something bigger, right? Teamwork and, uh, honor and duty in service to the country, that kind of thing, that elevated my entire life. And it's when we start thinking of what our lives are in regards to others, right? So, I mean, you say you want to lose 10 pounds. Why? Is it just to look better, or is it to so you live long enough and you can play with your kids? You could last a little bit longer when you're roughhousing with your boys. I've got 3 boys. I gotta be fit. So that's a strong why. That's a good reason to get off your butt and get on the treadmill, or like I said, get outside. And you're absolutely right about the nature. Getting outside. We're so isolated from our world, from our animal cousins, from sunlight and unrecirculated air. I've been talking about it for a little while, but I just finished reading Comfort Crisis, and that's a good one. It's all about getting outside and the different effects it has on your body, your mind. So, how many times, like you said, you went to Everest first? That was your first major of the 7.
If you're gonna go big, right? So that was the first of the 7 summits, and it was the first big mountain I had climbed. And when I got to base camp of Everest, it was the highest that I had ever been. I trained here in Colorado, and the highest point, let's just round it up and say it's 14,500 feet, which is literally half the size of Everest. So that's the highest I had ever been before I got to Nepal.
Yeah, I was 2 weeks away from Kilimanjaro when the meningitis struck. I was in the hospital fighting for my life again. That was just shy of 10 years ago. So, uh, just got back into the mountains, like I said, and I don't know how much you said you did Ironman. I don't know how much of a runner you are, but I think somebody on this last trip just talked me into doing a coast to Kili, 100 miler from the coastline to the top of Kilimanjaro. So I'm just saying that I'm suggestible.
When are you doing the coast to Kili?
We're talking about it. Nothing's been planned yet, but uh, it sounds like, well, it sounds like those adventures, right? Grueling, sometimes miserable, uh, definitely uncomfortable, and an absolute blast. Uh, and I'm sure that's what most of if not all of your mountain climbs and other adventures, skiing to the poles. And yeah, it's not comfortable, right? It's anything but it's the closest we can get to finding our perfect selves, right? Challenging ourselves, growing, like you said, and continuing to do your best and have fun, like your parents said.
It's interesting because it's difficult to say Everest is fun, but it's like the type 2 fun, right? Climbing Denali, I slid 100 feet. I was roped up to my climbing partner, which is the highest mountain in North America. I slid 100 feet, and I wouldn't necessarily call that fun, but underlying after you get home, looking back at it, you're like, well, now that I'm alive, yeah, that was kind of fun, right? But then realizing there's a difference between being alive and living. And I think so many people are afraid to step out of their comfort zone because that's where really living begins. And I think that they're in that comfort zone and they're afraid to step out because they're scared to look at themselves in the mirror because they're afraid of the answers and what they might really see of who they are. And going back to what you said about teamwork in the 100, I'd love to do that with you, by the way. I have never made it to the summit of any significant peak by myself. Whether the cancers, whether the mountains, whether the poles, the Hawaii Ironman, and in November, I don't know if I mentioned this, in November I'm running 7 marathons in 7 days on all 7 continents. So that that itself, it requires teamwork. And what's that saying? No man is an island. You just can't do those things by yourself. You have to have a support group rallying around you for a common cause and a common goal.
I I think my friend Frank will be with you. I'm gonna have to ask him because he's doing the same challenge. Um, I haven't saved up enough money for that challenge. But that's amazing. I love it. I don't. Um, uh, and you're right about the teamwork, about doing it for others, and at least doing it with others. Because yeah, I was in the mountains in Crested Butte, 12,000 feet, 12,500, somewhere around there, and yeah, I'm blind. I'm deaf. I lost my inner ear, the vestibular balance. I should not be on the side of a mountain. Uh, and because of the blindness, I also have a sleep disorder, which is severely exacerbated when your sleep pad won't inflate and it's really cold. So I didn't sleep for an entire week. And you don't recover from one day to the next, just like when you're on Everest and into that dead zone. You're just slowly dying every single day. You're not recovering even with a little bit of sleep that you can muster there. So why do we do it? And you know what? I got bumps and bruises and I climbed that mountain, and because of the people around me, I come out of the tent in the morning. Everybody else is, drinking coffee and rested and ready for the day. And I'm like, I haven't slept and I don't know if I've got it in me to go on. And somebody just says, well, let's see. I'm trying to tell you I quit. Nah, let's go. You'll be all right. And then you go. And then you have a great time. Doing it for others is a lot easier because we let ourselves off the hook so easy. So, how many times now have you been up Kilimanjaro?
We going back, we always come up with excuses to give ourselves because we can rationalize our way to excuses day in, day out. I'm tired today. Okay, cool. Yeah, because your inside voice, that inner dialogue's not going to argue against itself.
Oh, he's a jerk.
Yeah. It's like, what are you talking about? Nah, screw you, man. I'm going to sit here. This is more comfortable. But when you have those other people who are encouraging you, it makes a difference. You know, my wife was, she was born and raised in Puerto Rico. And before she moved to Colorado, before we got married, her idea of stepping out of her comfort zone was going to the beach and forgetting a bottle of sunscreen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we first got together, I asked her, well, what do you want to do? She's like, well, I like running. I was like, okay, great. You know, a week later, I was like, okay, I signed us up for a half marathon. And she's like, wait, what? So she just came up with something. But having that encouragement there from other people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we were actually at mile 11, I think. And each mile I'm running, come on, babe, you got this. Good job. Good job. Come on. Yeah. Woohoo. You know,
man. Runners are very encouraging. You know,
but at mile marker 11, I'm doing the same thing. And she looks at me and she goes, stop supporting me. Well, I'm sorry. What? So what's that?
Oh, no, I was just thinking, like all the runners in a marathon or half marathon, and say, "Hey, keep it up, good going." How do you know?
Right.
Maybe I'm a little cynical. Like, stop congratulating me for being here.
Right. So she got over it, and it was kind of funny. It was her first run ever. I didn't know she hasn't done anything before, so not a 5K, not a 10K. We just jumped right into it, right? Half marathon. And she crosses the finish line and opens up this little bag, looks inside, and she's like, a freaking banana? Like, I ran the whole thing, and all I get is a freaking banana?
And then shiny metal thing.
Exactly, yeah. I actually have a picture of her. She passed out at the Airbnb, asleep wearing the medal. She slept with the medal all night long. But going back to your Kilimanjaro, 25 times. This past trip was 25. And it's always great. It's always wonderful to see literally to see my brothers from the Chugga tribe. And it's always wonderful to go up the mountain and just like we said, disconnect. You know, at the same time, it is very draining, but very energizing at the same time. And when I'm on the mountain, my wife she supported 100 orphans at the foot of the mountain for the past 6 years with food for the entire year. And visiting those kids at the school and the orphanage, it's very similar to going up Kilimanjaro, where it simultaneously drains or simultaneously, breaks and fills your heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going up the mountains, it drains you, but also recharges you.
We're disconnecting from, the normal, the mundane or mediocre, right? You're connecting to something even deeper, bigger, right? We are efficiency, machines, right? We want to make everything as easy as we possibly can. And there's good reason for that, evolutionary, being what it is, that's how we're designed, so we can survive. But we also kind of evolved ourselves into a corner. So we got to get out there. We got to tap into our strengths and kind of push our weaknesses. When we don't really have to, but we know it's good for us. Going back to that teamwork and accountability, that's why it's a lot easier to lace up and go for a run when somebody comes knocking on your door. It's like, you ready? Let's go. But 25 times up Kelly, that's pretty impressive on its own.
Hey, you're right. With the accountability, you have somebody else there pushing you forward, and guilt is a tremendous motivator. When when somebody comes up like, yeah, I just ran, I just went to the gym, and you're sitting there thinking, oh, I just didn't do anything. But having that accountability is great. And again, going up Kilimanjaro, it's great. Just getting outside, disconnecting is phenomenal. And most people just they don't. I'm very blessed that I have been able to do that.
It's so funny about signing up for half marathon. Uh, I got talked into 4 marathons in the span of 4 months, and I'd never run anything longer than a 10K in my life. Uh, so yeah, but that was just somebody. It wasn't somebody registering for me. It was just somebody going, "You want to do it? Sure. Yeah, that sounds hard. Let's do it." And it's you know I've been talked into 100 milers and somehow talked into Badwater 135 and like I mentioned the 100 miles running to Kilimanjaro and then up. But it sounds hard. That's why I want to do it. And I think we need that in our lives. I'm glad that you're showing others how to do it and inspiring others to come with you. Are you doing Kilimanjaro again? When's the next big adventure? Of course, you mentioned is that the World Marathon Challenge? I think there's a couple.
The Global Marathon Challenge in November. But what's funny is how you get talked into doing those crazy challenges. But in my mind, I'm thinking somebody approaches me, and it sounds like you too. Like someone approaches you with this crazy idea. You're like, "Oh my God, you're crazy! Let's do it."
I love that. Yeah, I get so jealous when somebody says they're, diving to so many feet or they're, skiing to the South Pole. And I was like, man, that sounds, and I'm thinking, awesome. Yeah. You're climbing what? Can I come? Yeah. But I think that's a great mindset to have rather than looking at something in fear or in disgust of displeasure, or that doesn't sound comfortable. I think I'll just go binge on Netflix, which is not something I've done in over a decade.
It's interesting. It usually takes a life or death illness or a life or death situation to force people to change, but it doesn't need to be that way. Why not change for the better now? Why not choose to change for the better and chase those scary dreams and chase those scary moments, because that's when you truly feel alive. And knowing that we're all going to die at some point in our lives should be one of the biggest motivators to truly live.
Well, you and I both had multiple reminders of our mortality. And I'm almost embarrassed to say that I'm one of those cliched second chance, lease on life type of people. I almost died, so I decided then that I should start living my life. What was it Robin Sharma who said, "Don't live"? I always botch quotes. Don't live the same year 75 times and call it a life. We got to get out there, and uh, you're right. I mean, you can't convince somebody to change. They got to want it, and I think that's what comes from those core values.
Absolutely. And once you find a real reason to truly live, it could be for your family, like it was for me. Fantastic. if you don't want to live for yourself, live for someone else, and then that might turn into wanting to live for yourself.
And on the flip side too is just association, right? Becoming the people you want, the person you want to be by being around the people who live the life you want to live. So you you might be afraid of climbing the mountain or running the marathon or whatever it is. Uh, but why don't you just go around the people that are doing that? And maybe the fear will wear off. Maybe some of that motivation will wear on you. And who knows? Maybe you'll be leading the pack soon enough.
Absolutely, learn from people who are out there doing it.
So you've got this World Marathon Challenge. Are you going back to Kilimanjaro again?
Heading back again in February, and then probably the end of July. So we're doing 2 trips, maybe 3 trips in July. And they're, like I said, they're normally fundraisers for cancer charities, but the one in February is an immersive coaching experience, helping people utilize the mountain to figure out their purpose. Because once you figure out your purpose, then you can raise your standards and have a better life.
Is this part of that challenge, or is this something else? Are you taking groups with you?
Groups. So I think we're limiting this one to 20 people. So we want to keep it a smaller group. I've taken anywhere between, well, I had 3 during COVID. We went over during COVID. That was the smallest group. And I've taken 32 up the mountain, which I'll never do again. I was just like herding cats.
That
No way.
sounds like a mess.
Absolute mess. So it's like, guys, you're going the wrong way. Like, we're going up, but we have to go around them. No, wrong way. It's just a mess. I'll never do that again. So capping it at 20, and that includes me. So 19.
Yeah, it's still big, but that sounds great. And besides just going up and down, what is it like a program? Do you have like a lecture series, or what? How do you tie the challenge into their own personal lives?
Yeah, interesting question. So we start off at the hotel at the base of the mountain, walking people through their own core values assessment. And then we also have them do a personal route assessment, not a route assessment up the mountain. We know the route, so we're just going to stick to that. A personal route assessment where they answer deep questions like, who are you? And most people answer that with, I'm a father, I'm a teacher, I'm an employee, I'm this, I'm a whatever. But that doesn't describe who you are. What type of person are you? Who are you? Deeply, the proverbial deep, dark look into the mirror. For some people, a dark look. Some people, they love it. But at each camp, the days are different. And at each camp during dinner, we work on different things because the actual physical mountain reflects back to and is a metaphor for a lot of things that happen in life. So we help people with things like the compound effect. We help them with going inside, because there's one day where I think it's 8 or 9 hours of hiking, and it's not aesthetically pleasing at all. It's boring. But then we help people go inside their own minds, and that's where they find the deeper purpose for wanting to reach the summit. Just like reaching any goal. So it's this whole challenge over a course of 7 days, and then we take a flight and we spend 4 days on a safari in the Serengeti.
That sounds like fun.
It's a blast. And then we visit with my Maasai friends and the Maasai warriors, and it's a life-changing experience. It really is.
Well, it all sounds incredible, and I'm sure it's a rewarding feeling to have such an impact on other people's lives. So, tell me, what's exciting you now? Like, what's really what's getting you jumping out of bed each day now?
It's kind of funny. I was giving a presentation about 4 years. I've been married now just for 5.5 years. And so it's fairly new. I've known her for a while, but I remember about a year after we got married, I was giving a presentation, and I was taking some questions, and one person asked me, well, what's the next big adventure? And kind of tongue in cheek, I said, well, I just recently got married. And then someone chimed in out of nowhere, and they said, well, that's more difficult than climbing Everest. I started laughing, which it isn't. If you're listening, marriage is not as difficult as climbing Everest. So kind of tongue in cheek, I would say what gets me out of bed every morning is not my wife's cold feet on my back, but my wife encouraging me to help increase the quality of both of our lives. Unfortunately, we can't have children, so I'm not going to have a legacy of children, but doing a lot of keynote speaking, and 2 books out now, the program online, and my biggest goal is to leave the world a better place than I found it, and to help other people along the way.
Certainly, in the spirit of the point of impact, I tell you what, even though, yeah, you shouldn't consider marriage a challenge, like climbing Everest. Yeah. On the flip side, maybe going back to how your parents taught you about just being your best, doing your best, and having fun, right? You can be a husband, a father, a family member, a friend, and you can turn that into a personal challenge as a goal of being and doing your best. And that, in a way, is the challenge. So tell you what, why don't we lead right there into our final segment, which is the countdown to impact. And it's a 3, 2, 1. 3 books, 2 quotes, and 1 person that has had an impact in your life.
3 books. Well, I'm reading one now, and it's called One Last Talk. In fact, I'm trying to look for it. It's being blocked from my desk, my office desk right now. But One Last Talk. There's another one I want to read called The Mastery Journal. And then, am I allowed to say the feedback that I've been getting on my book called Being Unstoppable? People have read it. They send me emails saying, I stayed up all night. I couldn't put it down, because it's well written. And I say that because I didn't write it myself. So I had a part of it, and I wrote most of it, and it was edited. 2 quotes. Actually, you know what? There's a book here. I don't know who said this, but it's the title of the book, and I see it every day, and it's just Never, Never Quit. And then probably my favorite quote is on my business cards, and it says, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Nelson Mandela. I love that one.
I love that one. That's great.
And then, yeah, I love it. And then one person, I guess it would have to be, and it's interesting because I started thinking about this about a week ago. And I was running and training for the 777, the Global Marathon Challenge. And I was listening to a podcast where they said, or they suggested, to find someone you looked up to. Who was your hero? And I started thinking about all the famous and infamous people, all the authors, everyone that we're quote unquote supposed to look up to. I started thinking about people who are in my immediate life who have an impact on me. Mm-hmm. Not people who I may never meet, people who have an impact on my life directly. And I came up with this person who literally left her comfortable island in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, moved from Puerto Rico to Colorado, where we're not exactly the same climate as a Caribbean island, In fact, when she first moved here, we got a snow dumping, and she looked at me and said, "Can I go snow blow the driveway?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, knock yourself out. Have a great time." So that person would be my wife, Julissa, because she had the courage to leave her comfort zone of Puerto Rico. Her whole family's down there, and she started an entirely new life, and we started a new life together.
That's fantastic. All great examples. And I know it's often hard for the guests to just come up with just one person that's had influence. Maybe we'll have to switch the order around. But uh, appreciate that. We'll get that into the show notes as well as any contact information you want to leave if people want to get a hold of you, find out about your challenge, or just learn more.
That's the easiest question you've asked so far. It was just go to SeanSwarner.com. Sean like Sean Connery, and then the Warner Brothers slap an S on the front. SeanSwarner.com.
Awesome. Well, Sean, I really appreciate you coming on. And I hope we run into each other somewhere on a big adventure.
Absolutely. Stay in touch, Aaron. I'd love to hear more about that 100 Achille, and if I can either help organize with my contacts over there or join you or whatever, even just support you in any way, let me know.
Well, that sounds like party. All right. Awesome. And I certainly will be in contact. All right. Take care.